The night is fueled by a torrential downpour as a man is ambushed in a secluded alleyway. Before he can even process the danger, he is brutally slammed into the concrete, writhing in pain. The culprit is a ruthless individual named Vance, who wastes no time dragging his unconscious captive back to a hidden, nightmarish laboratory. Inside, the victim is strapped to an operating table, paralyzed and hooked up to countless tubes pumping fluid into his veins. But just as Vance prepares to begin his twisted experimentation, the law arrives. Prosecutor Eleanor and a heavily armed police squad storm the room, catching him red-handed. Yet, instead of panicking, Vance remains chillingly calm. Wearing a disturbing smile, he casually attempts to explain his medical procedures to the officers as if he were just treating an ordinary patient. Disgusted by his depravity, Eleanor orders him to be hauled away immediately. As Vance is escorted out, Eleanor and her partner survey the horrific scene, discovering bloody medical instruments and a freezer emitting a suffocating, foul stench. Eleanor realizes they aren't just dealing with a common criminal, they are hunting a complete psychopath. While sitting in the back of the police cruiser, Vance overhears a radio report revealing that one of his victims actually survived. Instead of showing fear, he remains smug, muttering that the man was never a victim. By the next morning, the police station is under siege by reporters demanding answers. Amidst the chaos, a high-profile man named Julian is struggling to evade the media frenzy until an elite attorney named Sean steps in to rescue him. After ushering Julian into a getaway car, Sean bluntly warns him that this was his final free pass. One more mistake will land him straight behind bars. Suddenly, Sean's phone alerts him to a high-stakes meeting with a specialized doctor. They discuss a highly experimental medical procedure, leaving the agonizing final choice in Sean's hands. Standing outside the hospital later, Sean discusses the risks with his wife, but looking at his young daughter's innocent smile, his heart breaks with a mixture of desperation and guilt. Back at the precinct, Eleanor confronts Vance in the interrogation room, grilling him about the human remains in his freezer. Unfazed, Vance claims his work is entirely for the advancement of science, insisting he is developing a miracle cure for terminal illnesses. In his delusional mind, sacrificing a few lives is a small price to pay to save millions. He truly views himself as a messiah rather than a murderer. As news of the horrific interrogation leaks, the public is left in absolute shock. Following the breadcrumbs, the forensics team uncovers a hidden gravesite containing skeletal remains. The revelation is staggering. This isn't an isolated incident, but rather a pattern of 17 victims who fell prey to Vance's twisted crusade. If you're hooked so far, take 1 second to hit like and subscribe. It helps the channel a lot. And trust me, the best part of this movie is still coming. The plot thickens when Vance specifically requests Sean to be his defense attorney. Blindsided, Sean wonders why a serial killer would choose him out of all the top lawyers in the city. A journalist delivers a cryptic message from Vance. Just mention the name Marcus. The name hits Sean like a bolt of lightning. He quickly learns that Marcus was a close connection who also perished at the hands of the mad doctor. Realizing there is a much deeper conspiracy at play, Sean demands a private, face-to-face meeting with the prisoner. Meanwhile, Eleanor is stunned to learn that Vance is already meeting with private counsel. Sensing the escalating stakes, she demands full control of the case, refusing to let a notorious defense attorney derail justice. When Sean finally confronts Vance in the visitor's room, emotions boil over. Sean lunges across the table, grabbing Vance by the collar and demanding answers about Marcus's death and the secret medical treatments. Vance simply smiles, calculating Sean's every move like a grandmaster at a chessboard. Then, he plays his ultimate trump card. He mentions Sean's sick daughter, Chloe, subtly hinting at her fate. The terrifying implication leaves Sean paralyzed with fear. Once the tension settles, Vance makes a staggering offer. $1 million up front, and another $1 million if Sean gets him acquitted. When Sean challenges him, threatening to take the money and run, Vance reveals his ultimate leverage. He claims that once Sean meets the patients he has successfully cured, the lawyer will be begging to defend him. The common thread among all these survivors? They were all terminally ill. Driven by a mix of skepticism and desperate hope, Sean and the reporter hit the pavement to track down these alleged survivors. Back at the precinct, Eleanor's team uncovers a moral bombshell while analyzing the victims' files. Every single person Vance targeted had a violent criminal record, though his methods are undeniably monstrous. From a dark perspective, Vance was acting as a vigilante cleaning up the worst of society. Determined to find the remaining bodies, Eleanor interrogates Vance once more, but he stands by his actions with terrifying conviction, viewing the dead as necessary sacrifices for medicine. Left empty-handed, Eleanor coordinates a massive search party to scour the region, while Sean's search for a cured patient continually hits dead ends. The police try putting Vance through a polygraph test, but it proves entirely useless. The machine can't detect lies because Vance genuinely believes he is a savior, feeling zero remorse for the 17 lives he took. With public pressure reaching a boiling point and the test results inconclusive, Eleanor swallows her pride and meets Vance privately. This time, she asks about the mechanics of his treatment. Vance recounts his origin story, explaining how it began small by reviving a dead houseplant overnight, then moving to fish, and eventually escalating to human experimentation in his quest to become a living saint. Finally, Vance yields a crucial piece of evidence, giving up the mountain location of his final victim. As Eleanor and the police swarm the rugged terrain to recover the body, Vance's unsettling offer to prove his medical theories in a court of law echoes in her mind. But just as the police unearth the corpse, Sean achieves a breathtaking breakthrough of his own. He tracks down a young boy named Leo, who was supposed to be one of Vance's patients. Sean distinctly remembers Leo being completely paralyzed and confined to a wheelchair, but right before his eyes, the boy is running around perfectly healthy. Suddenly, Vance's impossible promise to cure Sean's dying daughter starts to sound dangerously real. Concurrently, prosecutors confirm that the remains unearthed on the mountain are precisely where Vance indicated they would be. It becomes clear that his confession wasn't an attempt to secure a lighter sentence, but rather a strategic bargaining chip. Vance doesn't want mercy. He simply wants the grand stage of a courtroom to prove to the world that his miracle cure is legitimate. Eleanor, however, refuses to buy into the hype. To her, he remains a dangerous, delusional lunatic, and she stands firm in demanding the ultimate penalty, the death sentence. This leaves Sean trapped in an agonizing dilemma. As a legal professional, he knows Vance is a monster, but as a father, he is entirely consumed by the desperate need to save his daughter. Recognizing Sean's lingering skepticism, Vance shares one final revelation: the miracle of his own survival. Years prior, as a medical student, Vance had been involved in a catastrophic car crash. He spent 3 years in a deep coma, written off by doctors as a vegetable with zero hope of recovery. Yet, defying every known law of science, he simply woke up one day. That inexplicable awakening sparked his lifelong obsession with conquering death. Medical tests later revealed a bizarre genetic mutation in Vance's blood after the accident, a unique anomaly that literally pulled him back from the brink. However, this miraculous survival came with an agonizing price: relentless, blinding chronic migraines. Utilizing his own medical genius, Vance began experimenting on his own broken anatomy, achieving results that surpassed his wildest dreams. Armed with this physical proof, Sean can no longer deny the reality of Vance's capabilities. But time is rapidly running out. Outside the courthouse, an angry public is out for blood, protesting in the streets and demanding an immediate execution. Sean finds himself fighting a lonely, desperate battle against the clock, trying to stall the legal system just long enough for Vance to save Chloe. Odds, however, are heavily stacked against them. With 17 confirmed victims, the world views Vance as nothing more than a bloodthirsty psychopath who needs to be eliminated. To make matters worse, Eleanor proves to be an absolute nightmare for the defense. Armed to the teeth with ironclad evidence, she argues that Vance's experiments were merely a cover for a sadistic revenge spree targeting the very individual responsible for his past car accident. Eleanor lays out every gruesome detail, presenting crime scene photographs so horrific they leave the entire gallery gasping for air. Yet, in the middle of this grim presentation, Vance does the unthinkable. He begins to laugh. This cold-blooded reaction sends the courtroom into a blind rage, his sheer arrogance nauseating everyone present. With the entire country screaming for an execution, Sean makes a high-stakes, desperate plea to the judge: allow Vance to demonstrate his miracle cure right here in the courtroom to prove his worth to humanity. As it turns out, this was Vance's master plan from the very beginning: to corrupt Sean and force an elite attorney into a position where he must protect a monster. Sean is reaching his absolute breaking point. Every time he demands a straight answer, Vance merely plays psychological mind games, refusing to explicitly admit or deny the murders. His twisted logic remains chillingly simple. How can society execute a man who holds the key to curing every terminal illness? He constantly weaponizes Chloe's failing health, twisting the knife in the desperate father's heart at every opportunity. Even though Sean has no true understanding of the malice driving the killer, he is in too deep to retreat. He is fully prepared to sacrifice his reputation, his morals, and his very soul to save his bedridden child. Officially walking away from his prestigious career, Sean trades his luxury lifestyle for a filthy, trash-filled room provided by his journalist friend to serve as a makeshift war room. To alter the narrative surrounding the doctor, Sean instructs the reporter to plant a massive media story designed to manipulate public opinion and distract the masses from the murder charges. This engineered media circus has high-ranking officials trembling under the pressure, but Eleanor refuses to back down, confident she can bury the defense and ensure justice is served. Tragedy, however, strikes closer to home. Little Chloe's condition begins to spiral violently out of control, her heart rate plunging to near zero as she languishes in her coma. Racing to the hospital in a panic, Sean confronts his wife, who is entirely drained after years of tireless, agonizing care. Knowing he must act immediately, Sean declares he is ready to risk everything on Vance's experimental cure. But his wife is terrified. Chloe is far too fragile to be used as a medical guinea pig, and her mother refuses to gamble with her remaining days. Seeing his family suffering at the absolute brink of exhaustion pushes Sean to find an immediate breakthrough. He spends his days tracking down every single patient Vance ever cured, begging them to take the stand and testify to the doctor's genius. However, his efforts hit a total brick wall. Not a single survivor is willing to step forward, terrified of the crushing social stigma that comes with being saved by a notorious serial killer. When Vance learns of this betrayal from behind bars, he merely offers a bitter, cynical laugh. The very people who once begged him for a miracle now refuse to grant their savior the time of day. To give Sean the leverage he needs, Vance reveals the existence of a secret journal, a red notebook containing the precise step-by-step blueprints of his entire experimental process. With no other options, Sean is forced to return to the nightmare fuel of Vance's blood-stained laboratory. He tears the subterranean facility apart, scavenging through the horrific mess, but the red notebook is nowhere to be found. However, while digging through the scattered files, he accidentally stumbles upon a medical folder containing the exact experimental test results for the specific terminal illness threatening Chloe's life. Just as he becomes absorbed in the groundbreaking data, Sean realizes someone is lurking right outside the shadows of the doorway. The intruder catches Sean's eye and immediately bolts into the night, forcing the attorney into a high-speed foot chase. Though a grueling sprint through dark corridors isn't exactly a perfect fit for an aging lawyer, Sean utilizes his knowledge of the layout, taking a shortcut to violently tackle the figure to the ground. But the grand revelation is a massive disappointment. It is merely a reckless teenager filming a viral bravery challenge vlog at a famous murder site, offering no help to the case whatsoever. To make matters worse, Sean's day takes an even more disastrous turn when a panicked call rings through from his reporter ally. The authorities have arrived, kicking down the doors to raid the makeshift office under allegations that their recent article is nothing short of criminal slander. Sean floors the accelerator, racing back to the scene just as investigators begin tearing his operation apart. Armed with a search warrant, the investigators show absolutely zero respect for the space. But Sean isn't going down without a fight. Drawing a line in the sand, he fiercely declares his personal area off-limits, threatening to sue them into the dirt if they touch a single document. Intimidated by the sheer authority of the legendary attorney, the inspectors back off. As it turns out, this entire raid was orchestrated by Eleanor. She is the daughter of a powerhouse prosecutor and, ironically, used to be Sean's top student. Sean reflects on her background, noting that while he taught his students to be the smartest, he accidentally made them incredibly stubborn too. It is a classic student versus teacher showdown. While Sean and the reporter are left sighing over how impossible the case is becoming, a brilliant young woman named Natalie walks in. The reporter called her in for backup, and Natalie is eager to help, having been stuck doing miserable paperwork ever since Sean left their old prestigious firm. Her arrival gives the reporter a genius idea. Use Natalie's charm and eloquence to persuade the terrified witnesses to come forward. Natalie confidently accepts the challenge, and despite Sean's reluctance to drag anyone else into the mess, he is powerless against her persistence. True to her word, Natalie quickly convinces Leo's mother to testify. But just as the defense thinks they have a lead, a massive twist hits them. Every single witness has received a personal, threatening letter sent directly from Vance's prison cell. Even from behind bars, the killer warned his former patients that if they took the stand, he would expose their identities to the public. Terrified of becoming lifelong social outcasts for being cured by a serial killer, the witnesses panic. Furious at the chaos, Sean takes total control, declaring that everything regarding the trial must go through him first. Fortunately, Natalie manages to talk the key witnesses off the ledge, successfully, convincing a man whose blood cancer was cured and young Leo to take the stand. After an all-night war room session prepping the defense, court resumes. Leo's mother trembles as she describes the miracle injection that suddenly allowed her paralyzed son to walk. Seeing the boy vibrant and healthy makes the story feel undeniably real. However, Eleanor is a shark. She immediately attacks the original medical records, bringing in an expert witness to argue that Leo's paralysis was likely temporary and would have healed on its own. It is a devastating blow that leaves the gallery murmuring in disgust. All the pressure falls on the cancer survivor, but the man sits huddled in his seat, trembling. When he finally finds the courage to speak, he stammers that he isn't cured and is still undergoing hospital treatment. This statement completely ruins the defense, making Vance look like a total fraud who played with human lives. Eleanor flashes a triumphant, smug smile that leaves Sean speechless. When Sean later chases the witness down, the man offers a weak excuse and vanishes. Losing this round means Sean has to face a furious Vance. The irony is staggering. Vance is the one who sent the threatening letters that scared the witnesses, yet he has the nerve to scream at Sean for being incompetent. However, the plot takes another twisted turn. After observing the witnesses' interaction with Sean, Eleanor recalls a chilling warning Vance once gave her. Never let the patients undergo traditional treatments or my method will fail. It turns out the cancer patient had been cured, but out of fear, he sought standard hospital therapy. Just as Vance predicted, those procedures interfered with the miracle, causing the cancer to come screaming back. Realizing they need to align, Vance and Sean map out a new strategy. Vance proposes a formal medical demonstration using his old files to prove his cure is the real deal. Though it is a massive long shot, Vance's supreme confidence is infectious, and Sean finds himself genuinely fired up to defend the mad doctor. Meanwhile, media coverage of the trial is plastered across every screen in the country. The high-profile circus leaves the police chief feeling uneasy, wondering if backing Eleanor will drag them into a world of trouble. The next day, Eleanor's past catches up with her when she runs into her powerful, wealthy father. In a tense, private conversation inside a car, he demands she quit the law to join the family empire. Eleanor stands her ground, flatly refusing to abandon her own path. That night, Sean heads to a hospital to show professional doctors Vance's medical records, desperate to validate the science and secure the funding needed for his daughter's impending procedures. The medical staff mock the data, warning him not to trust a lunatic. Fueled by what he saw Leo achieve, Sean ignites a shouting match to defend the research, causing the doctors to storm out. At the same time, Eleanor watches a live broadcast of a prominent politician, Representative Beck. Using her connections, she has been acting as his secret advisor, pushing him to demand the death penalty for Vance to secure her a guaranteed victory. On screen, Beck mocks Sean by name for believing in supernatural healing powers. Sean fumes but swallows his pride. The hope of saving Chloe is the only thing keeping him from walking away. To celebrate the soaring broadcast ratings, Beck invites Eleanor and Police Chief Arthur to an intimate dinner. When the politician steps out to take a call, Eleanor drops her polite act, bluntly criticizing the chief and the media for chasing likes and views, while she is the only one taking justice seriously. When Beck returns, the conversation turns nasty as he mocks Sean's desperate defense, ending the dinner in a flurry of insults and high-stakes tension. Back in their makeshift office, Sean and his team pull an all-nighter analyzing every corner of the case. Connecting the dots, they stumble upon a game-changing argument. Soon, the information Sean leaks hits the airwaves as a news anchor presents a shocking new theory. Is Vance really a cold-blooded killer, or is he the primary victim of a much larger conspiracy? Watching the broadcast, Eleanor is baffled by how perfectly Sean's team spun an alternate reality. As the next court date arrives, the atmosphere outside is toxic, with an angry mob screaming for Vance's execution and demanding Sean quit the case. Inside, the moment the gavel hits, Sean is on his feet requesting to submit new evidence. Eleanor immediately objects, but Sean uses his decades of experience to outmaneuver her. Once he wins the floor, Sean drops two massive bombshells. First, he presents research from a prestigious medical group proving that during Vance's student days, his blood-related research was highly valued as a revolutionary project. Second, he drops a truth bomb about the victims, presenting a thick dossier of criminal records proving that every single person Vance killed was a violent felon who had exploited legal loopholes to stay on the streets. This wasn't mindless murder, it was vigilante justice. As the courtroom reels, Eleanor desperately tries to regain control, arguing that a criminal record does not justify execution. Eleanor counters sharply, arguing that regardless of the victims' backgrounds, not a single person has been proven cured. That is when Sean plays his ultimate card, boldly offering to submit Vance's actual treatment methodology for a formal judicial review. Sean had previously grilled Vance in private, confirming the science before staking his entire career on it. When the judge questions if the treatment utilizes human blood, Sean confirms the mechanics. It relies on mutated blood cells harvested directly from Vance's own body. The courtroom falls into a stunned silence. Sounds like science fiction, but Sean is dead serious. His team has already had the method vetted by independent laboratories, and the results are unanimous. The cellular cultivation is scientifically viable. Sean closes with a desperate plea to grant Vance one opportunity to demonstrate his medical genius in a controlled environment. The moment he exits the courthouse, Sean is swarmed by a sea of reporters all shouting the same question. Is this cure real? Armed with absolute faith, Sean makes a career-ending bet on live television, declaring that if Vance's claims are proven false, he will permanently resign from the legal profession. Inside his holding cell, Vance is ecstatic. The plan is working, but a massive problem looms over them. The red notebook containing the secret formulas is still missing. After evaluating the timeline, Sean and Vance come to a chilling realization. The police likely seized it during the initial raid, meaning Eleanor has been sitting on the evidence this entire time. Following the high-pressure hearing, Eleanor meets with her superior, only to find him wavering. He openly questions if there is a real possibility that Vance's cure actually works. This triggers a flashback for Eleanor to the night of the arrest. She remembers barging in mid-procedure as Vance screamed that halting the operation would mean certain death for the patient. The police had ignored him and the patient died exactly as predicted. Eleanor debates the ethics of that night with her partner, an unyielding, by-the-book detective who dismisses the miracle cure as total nonsense. They are committed to this path, and there is no turning back. Restless, Eleanor scrubs through the laboratory security footage over and over until she spots a massive detail. Vance wasn't a lone wolf. A suspected accomplice was actively helping him with the experiments. Seizing the momentum, she orders a full printout of every contact in Vance's personal diary and secures every second of footage near the facility for the final hearing. Meanwhile, Sean's team is riding high as their legal analyses go viral across social media. Yet, the missing notebook remains a dark cloud over their progress. Retracing Vance's past, Sean identifies a key player, Professor Harrison, the physician who treated Vance after his near-fatal car crash. Sean meets the professor and lays out everything, the mutated blood, the successful cures, and the hope for his daughter. But the professor shuts him down with cold, clinical efficiency, stating flatly that the idea of Vance's blood curing terminal illness is a complete lie with zero scientific basis. Sean leaves the meeting stunned, his conviction finally starting to crack. At the same time, Eleanor receives an official medical report confirming the professor's stance. Armed with this definitive proof, she walks into the courtroom with absolute confidence, moving to block the medical demonstration and demanding the death sentence. Sean refuses to yield, delivering a powerful plea for humanity. He accuses the prosecution of intentionally burying a medical breakthrough and begs the court for a lighter sentence so a medical tribunal can evaluate the findings. Then comes the verdict. The judge acknowledges that while the mutated blood claims lack formal scientific backing, Vance's actions seem to stem from a genuine desire to cure people. Eleanor waits with bated breath, her heart sinking at the legal leeway. However, the final hammer falls with a devastating blow. The court rules that the human cost was simply too high. The request for a medical demonstration is officially denied, and the judge sentences Vance to death. The courtroom erupts into cheers, leaving Sean completely devastated. He waits behind, desperate to reason with the judge, but she stands firmly by her decision, insisting a killer is a killer regardless of talent. Sean loses his cool, shouting at her to think about the terminally ill children whose only hope was just snatched away, but his pleas fall on deaf ears. Though the higher-ups are busy popping champagne, Sean knows there is still a slim window before the execution, meaning there is zero time to rest. Just as he suspected, the internet is already on fire. Viral posts about the miracle cure are everywhere, and netizens have launched a massive campaign to challenge the verdict. This public relations war was part of the strategy Sean and Vance cooked up, but Sean knows public opinion isn't enough to sway an appellate court. They need a fallback plan. Every moral boundary Sean crosses is a direct trade for his daughter's life. Collapse-weary at the end of a grueling day, his only solace is a brief phone call to Chloe. He doesn't know if he can truly trust a psychopath, but with a 99% chance that his daughter's illness is fatal, Sean is willing to bet everything on that 1% chance that the mad doctor is telling the truth. Meanwhile, Eleanor's investigation takes a major turn. She discovers that one of the victims was actually a member of the same research institute where Vance used to work. Remembering Sean's mention of the lab in court, she heads to the facility the next day. The building is a dusty ghost town, abandoned for years. As she explores the desolate halls, her instincts flare. She realizes she is being stalked by a shadowy figure. Eleanor gives chase, but the intruder fights back with vicious intensity, slashing her arm. Before she can recover, the man pulls a daredevil move, leaping from a high ledge to the ground and vanishing into the night. The real horror, however, unfolds back at the prison. Because of his high-profile crimes, Vance is tossed into a general population cell filled with hardened convicts. One of the inmates happens to be closely connected to one of Vance's victims. That night, the thugs wait until Vance appears asleep before creeping toward his bunk, armed with sharpened pens. In a confined space, the numbers are heavily against him. They swarm the bunk, pinning him to the floor. Vance manages to hold his own for a moment, but he is completely outnumbered. In the chaos, a convict lunges forward, driving a sharp point deep into Vance's chest. The attackers are so reckless in the brawl that they begin hitting their own men, allowing Vance to spy an opening and slip through the perimeter. But instead of fleeing, Vance does something entirely insane. He grabs a discarded pen, drives it directly into the wall himself, and collapses onto the floor. He is rushed to the infirmary where doctors work frantically to stabilize him. When he finally regains consciousness, he desperately grabs the attending doctor's hand, begging for help. As it turns out, this entire prison riot was the opening act of a master plan orchestrated by Sean. The attorney had strategically arranged for those specific inmates to be placed in that exact cell, giving Vance total control over how the staged assault played out. When Sean arrives at the prison infirmary, the doctor delivers some earth-shattering news. Even while Vance was bleeding out from his wounds, he had managed to draw his own blood and perform an emergency transfusion on an injured cellmate. The result was nothing short of miraculous. The inmate's severe lacerations and an advanced case of peritonitis healed almost instantly. Though it sounds like science fiction, the prison physician witnessed it firsthand. This was the definitive proof the defense desperately needed. Later, Sean meets with Eleanor and her superior for a high-stakes showdown. The director attempts to play hardball, announcing that the state is officially scrapping the proposed medical demonstration and advising Sean to seek an entirely different defense strategy. Eleanor practically glows with smug satisfaction, but Sean isn't finished. He slides a fresh newspaper article across the table detailing the prison miracle. The moment they read the headline, Eleanor and the director freeze in disbelief. Eleanor is absolutely fuming. She has been trying to send this man to the gallows, but he keeps slipping through her fingers like a ghost. The shocks keep coming. Shortly after the meeting, Eleanor is stunned to learn that the official medical demonstration has been fast-tracked and approved with zero administrative resistance. It turns out Professor Harrison has suddenly arrived at the hospital, and his high-profile endorsement was the magic key that unlocked the trial. Eleanor tracks down Police Chief Arthur to get the inside scoop, and he drops a dark, buried secret. When Vance was in his 3-year coma, Professor Harrison didn't just treat him. He used him as a helpless human lab rat. Arthur gives Eleanor a chilling warning to stop digging into the past before she gets hurt. Meanwhile, Sean grills Vance about his history with the professor. Vance confirms that Harrison was the lead doctor after his car accident. Sean explains that the professor is the vital missing link, the one authority figure who can validate Vance's mutated blood cells in a court of law and make the full demonstration legally binding. Despite the escalating tension, Vance remains eerily calm, telling Sean to stop worrying and instead go buy a gift for his daughter. On his way out of the facility, Sean crosses paths with Eleanor, who offers a sarcastic congratulation on getting the trial approved. In a rare, raw moment of honesty, Sean admits the truth. He is standing by a literal monster solely to keep his daughter alive. He vows that if he fails, he will resign and walk away from the law forever, even leaving her with a wild challenge. If his claims are proven false and he has misled the public, she can punch him in the face right in front of the entire court. Soon after, a high-level medical board convenes to select the terminal patient who will undergo Vance's experimental procedure. This is a massive turning point for modern medicine and the only chance Sean has to save Chloe. Refusing to leave the hospital, Sean paces the corridors for hours, praying with everything he has that Chloe will be chosen. But life isn't a fairy tale. When the meeting finally adjourns, Sean has to make the hardest phone call of his life, informing his wife that Chloe wasn't picked. The board selected a different little girl for the trial. Though completely crushed, Sean forces himself to keep it together, realizing that if Vance can successfully save this child, it proves the cure is real and Chloe will be next in line. The following day, the mad doctor is escorted to the hospital under heavy police guard. This is the grand stage where he will prove his genius to the world. Stripping off his prison jumpsuit, Vance slides into a sterile white lab coat and steps into the operating room with terrifying confidence. The air is thick with tension as every observing physician holds their breath, deeply skeptical but unable to look away. The procedure is over in the blink of an eye, executed flawlessly without a single complication. Vance then drops a bombshell, declaring that the young patient will be fully recovered within exactly 24 hours. The clock immediately starts ticking. From Sean to the girl's terrified family, everyone counts down every second, paralyzed by a volatile mix of hope and fear. Meanwhile, Eleanor is still playing detective. Her forensics team sends over an analysis of the chemical residue found on the piping in that mysterious, abandoned research facility. As she connects the dots between Chief Arthur's warnings and the director's shady behavior, a chilling realization hits her. A massive conspiracy is being hidden right under her nose, and she is determined to unearth it. Fast forward 24 hours, and the impossible actually happens. The little girl opens her eyes and wakes up from her coma. Her family is overwhelmed with emotion, crying tears of pure joy. Everything Vance claimed was completely true. The very procedure the medical establishment dismissed as unscientific just saved a dying child. Back in his cell, Vance hears the news and lets out a manic, terrifying grin. In his twisted mind, he finally feels like a god who has conquered death. But the victory is short-lived. Back at Sean's makeshift office, a surprise visitor appears. The powerful chairman of the medical center. It looks like the corporate elite are moving in to squash Vance's miracle before it can truly change the world. What a mind-bending twist. If you're still breathing after that bombshell, hit that like button right now and subscribe to the channel. Vance just proved his cure is 100% real, but with the corporate elites moving in to bury the miracle, the real war is just beginning. Can Sean actually save his daughter before the system shuts everything down? Or did he just sell his soul to a monster for nothing? Drop your wildest theories in the comments below. Is Vance a visionary savior? Or is he still a cold-blooded psychopath playing the ultimate game? Don't go anywhere, because the explosive conclusion to this thriller is dropping next. Click the video on your screen right now to see how this insanity ends, and I'll see you there.